what's up, everybody? Thank you for listening. This is the very first episode of our Black Student Success podcast. It's where we're going to take a bunch of different professionals, successful Black professionals. We're going to get to talk to them and really try to figure out, how they got into their careers, the ins and outs, really just give you a foundation of, what things that they do throughout their normal day-to-day and how they got there. So we're really going to kind of touch into those stories and it hopes to, give you insight and guidance and really inspire you to, whatever goals that you may or may not know that you have. So my name is Self Inquire. I'm one of the co-founders of Inquire Hire. That's the company under this or that this podcast is under. And we're trying to do a lot of things when it comes to just really helping Black students really get to their goals. So just having a lot of information for all those folks. And we definitely want to hear from you in terms of, how this podcast goes and how everything goes just with our company and our efforts. So if you want to follow us, we are on social media, just at Inquire Hire. That's INQUIREHIGHER. We have a website, inquirehire.com. We definitely want you to check that out as well. And then, once by the time you're listening to this, we definitely want you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast and just all the content that we have coming on. So thank you again for joining us. So for our very first guest, I definitely appreciate this guy coming on to, really help us with, giving his insight. He's a very seasoned professional within the world of sports. He's worked for two franchises, the Oakland Raiders as well as the Golden State Warriors. He's a proud member of the Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Just an overall good dude. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Anthony Nutting, for joining us today. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the introduction and congratulations on the podcast. I look forward to being able to talk a little bit on the platform and being the first guest on is exciting. So
no pressure. So
no pressure at all. Worst case scenario can only go up from here. So
absolutely no. But I think you're definitely gonna do well, and what you do I think is really insightful. So, and when I was actually putting together this intro, I was thinking, okay. So I don't know what sports teams that you're really big on. And I was actually in LA when they did do the move of the Raiders. So I don't know if that was opening up any wounds for you. So, but I was like, let me hear what this guy's got to say about that and just, how that transition, worked out. So
the team is now they're in Vegas or whatnot. So. It's sad that they're not here in Oakland anymore. I get it from a financial standpoint. Why? That's the one thing about sports is that it is still a business. So, you kind of learn and understand essentially, the business of sports does, factor into it. And if you have like a city, for example, that, is willing to fund a $1 billion stadium, you're more likely to go there versus, a city that, doesn't have the funds and has the oldest stadium, in the entire, NFL. So I understand, but I'm still sad, part of Oakland is gone. So
yeah. So, I mean, how is the city? Because you're originally from Oakland, right?
Yeah, born and raised in Oakland. So
okay. So what was the reaction? I mean, I can guess, but as someone who's born and raised there, probably grew up watching them. What was your reaction, and then kind of what was the city's reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I knew it was inevitable because I knew, like I said, that the Oakland wasn't going to be financially prepared to invest in purchasing a stadium.
Mm-hmm.
For me, actually, it was pretty funny because working for the Warriors and working with the Raiders, the Warriors the year before, moved from Oakland to San Francisco for a new stadium. But that was a privately funded thing but they got like a lot of like money and breaks and things like that from like the city of San Francisco, whereas Oakland is a little bit more limited. But that doesn't hurt as much because you can still get to San Francisco. hop on, public transportation and get over there versus Vegas, which is more likely hopping on a flight, so to speak. So, but both of them are sad. Like, of course, like you feel like a part of like you growing up is gone in that regard. And, obviously being like a kid, you're not going to completely understand the business aspect, the business side of it.
Yeah.
All you see is that, your team is not there anymore. So I feel bad for the youth, especially because I have vivid memories. I love sports. I played baseball, basketball, football, track. I did it all growing up.
Yeah.
So the fact that, they don't get to see those, or we only have the one baseball team right now. So the Oakland A's. So that's literally the only professional team that's in Oakland. So it's tough, but I guess the benefit for the kids nowadays is they have a lot more outlets to watch sports teams, things like that. Whereas like us growing up, for example, you have your local team and you get maybe one game a week that's going to be on like regular TV. So I don't think it's going to affect them as much as it would have affected us, but it's still sad not being able to attend or go to like a football game, for example, in your city. So it's a little difficult. But
absolutely. Well, hold on to that baseball team, man.
We're barely holding on, but yes, we're trying to.
There you go. All right. So first I'm going to actually give you the floor. I'm going to really give you the chance to basically answer the question, who is Anthony Nutting? Tell the people about who you are and, what type of person you are.
Yeah. So in general, again, born and raised in Oakland, California. I've been here for most of my life. I did go to boarding school in Mississippi. It's about 20 minutes outside of Jackson for high school. So that was an interesting experience because prior to that, I hadn't been outside of the States, minus going to Vegas to see like my parent, my grandma, my grandpa. So going from, the inner city of Oakland, California to the rural country of Mississippi was very culturally different. But I appreciated it because I learned a lot in that regard. And then from there, I went to, Marquette University in Milwaukee, which was another fun experience. That's where I met you. And then, me personally in general, I just, I'm a super laid back kind of guy, like, no drama, no nothing like that. I enjoy my tennis shoe collection. I've slowed down a little bit now, though. I got other things that I have to focus on financially. But back in my day, I had, 50, 60 shoes or something like that, somewhere around there. So, for me, big thing is just like family. Like I love my family. I love sports. Those are like my two pillars essentially that, keep me together. So we have a small knit family, not big, but the ones that are around are supportive and I appreciate them. And they've molded me to be the person that I am today, which is pretty much just like be a fun loving guy, no hate in your life, and just, enjoy it, have fun. During these times, it's a little bit more difficult, of course, to have that said fun. But, prior to that, you enjoy your experiences of life and, you live and you learn from it. And then, you take something out of it, regardless, positive or negatively. Yeah. So that's kind of been my mindset. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well put. Yeah. And anytime I've seen you on campus, you've just been, you've always been nice. You've always been pretty, pretty chill. I haven't, seen or heard any drama. So, that keeps to what you said. So, and now that's interesting because, I did want to ask, in terms of you going to Marquette, you coming from Oakland. And I've gotten this question actually since we moved back to the Chicagoland area from LA. We're out there for a couple years. And the first question was, why? You got all this, you got the nice weather, you got the appeal of California. What was it that motivated you to actually go to Marquette, from the experience that you had in Oakland?
Yeah, I honestly would say if I didn't go to boarding school in Mississippi, there's probably little to no shot of me going to Marquette in general, because I was so comfortable being in my bubble, being in my area, so to speak. Like I love the Oakland. I feel like we have the best weather. It's always consistent. It's never too hot. It's never too cold. Like it's usually like right there. I mean, we may get 90 degrees 3 or 4 times a year in the summertime. So I love that about it. And then also from a cold standpoint, it doesn't get past 50 degrees. So it's perfect for me in that regard. Plus, my family's out here, but I kind of learned that it's fine to be uncomfortable. But Marquette happened because of Dwayne Wade. I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
Again, like I said, I love sports. And in high school, this guy was killing it in the March Madness, and I was like, "Who is this?" And Dwayne Wade. I was like, "Marquette. I've never heard of it. Where is it?" So I did like a little bit of research, and then I saw where it was located, and just so happened that I was interested at the time in doing broadcasting. And I saw that it was an option at the school. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Let me see what other schools, just out of curiosity, do have that program that I would be potentially interested in. And I went to a school to visit in California in San Rafael. It's about 15, 20 minutes away from Oakland. And I looked at the campus. It was a little bit more remote and quiet, which was fine. I don't have the issue with that. But we looked in the dorms, and I remember it being all of them were 3-person units, and they had no closets whatsoever. And they looked like they were bunked on top of each other. So because of that, it was automatically taken out. I was like, there's no shot I'm coming here.
That's a no-go.
No shot. But the Marquette still was like sticking in my brain. So I didn't come out to visit or anything. I just took a leap of faith online. And I saw that it said that it was in the heart of downtown Milwaukee. I was like, okay, great. At least I know it's in like the inner city, and which is good because I didn't get my license, for example, until I was like 22 or 23. Okay. It was like right after I graduated from Marquette. So the original things that got me out there were the program. Also with Marquette, they allowed you to start getting classes in broadcasting your freshman year.
Yep.
A couple of the other places, you couldn't touch anything that was in your major until your junior year. And I was like, oh man, like that's kind of weak. Like I want to like experience this. You can tell me I have to wait 2 years and do all my prereqs before I can get into it.
Right.
And I'm actually very thankful that they did that, because I actually ended up getting out of broadcasting after a semester. So if I would have done that, and focus on everything for 2 years, and then I decide everything I've been, working for, and I decide I don't want to do it, it would have been more devastating. So, I think it all worked out in that regard, but Dwayne Wade is the starting point. So even myself, I can 100% say that influence in sports still has a little bit of a factor in it.
There you go. Hey, you're being honest about that, and that's all we can ask for. I remember because I did broadcasting and I stuck through it, and that was one of the biggest appeals to me. It was the fact that, okay, I can go from my freshman year or that first semester, and I can really test out the waters within this and really figure out if this is something I want to do. And whether it's not, I know that I can jump into something else and not feel like I took too much time to do that. And if it did, now I can really push forward for the rest of that time and get into the program and really get the most out of that. So I totally agree. That was the same appeal that I had too. So, once you got there and you are now in this, this totally new city, you had the experience of being outside of Oakland before. You are a freshman, or you're kind of going through that first year and, still trying to figure out the ropes, especially for somebody who's out of state. So, what was that support system that you started to build? What did that look like? Who was in it? And, how did that really help you, whether that was either through good times or bad times while you were at school?
So I can remember, and I'll never forget. When I finally got to campus, I was like, wow, there's a lot of white people here.
You too?
I know, right? Like, who would think, yeah, Wisconsin white people, yeah. But so literally, like, anytime I saw like a black person, I just, hey, what's up? How are you doing? Like, I just wanted to, okay, cool. It's not just me here, so I was excited about it.
Absolutely.
I remember I was on my way to eat lunch, I believe, at one of the dorms, and I ran across Brendan Goodlow.
Okay.
And he's a nice, cool black guy from Illinois as well. And he just was very welcoming and just like, hey, how you doing? And it was very comfortable approach. And I hung out with him and a lot of his friends. He introduced me to a lot of people. James Bell, another good friend that we both know about. And then I essentially got that building and the sense of community from the Black Student Council that was on campus, because that was a place with people that looked like us were there. So it got me excited to see other people around and get involved and, just being more comfortable and being in that kind of environment. Also, what helped was playing basketball. So I also went to the rec and I met people that way. So that was fun. So that was my way essentially of breaking in to Marquette and starting to, learn more about the do's and don'ts of getting around at, college and like what teachers maybe to avoid or the places to go to on the weekends, things like that. So, they were really big, I would say, on getting me started just by having like those people that were willing to, not even for any ulterior motive, but to just general like, hey man, like I see that you're on campus, like what's going on, like how are you, you're a new face, what's up? And that was something that like was instilled in me when I got there. So when I became like a junior and senior, I tried to do the same thing when I saw like, kids on campus, because that's how I was embraced. I remember being in their shoes, kind of thing. So that definitely helped me during my process. Of course, like I said, over here I have my family, but locally, like, in person, that Black community was important because, they understood being in a classroom where I might have been the only Black person there. They could relate to me and I could relate to them. And it was genuine. It was honest. So, it was something I was very appreciative of.
That's what's up. Yeah. And I think that's really important to point out, especially for anyone who's looking at a school that, might not have the same population that they might be used to. And, that might, deter them from actually going to the school or taking advantage of a really good opportunity, especially if you've got, full ride scholarships involved and things like that. And I feel like this happens everywhere we go. If we know that we're the minority, within an area, and you spot, that one Black dude that's walking down the street, you guys are going to meet eyes, and then it's just going to be a wrap. And it's a wrap after that. And even if you don't do that, you got the nod. And then by the next time that you actually interact with them, you guys are, talking or whatever. And
exactly. I remember we did that a couple of times. So
absolutely.
Like, okay,
yeah.
Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah. So, it's, I want to point that out just, again, especially for those who are really like looking at schools that might have, a really high percentage of, white or anybody that just isn't like them or just not a population that they're used to. So, that genuine, interactions, I think you're going to naturally get, every time you're putting yourself in a position like that. So I'm glad that you pointed that out and that we have that, we had that interaction before. So that's what's up.
Okay.
So with you, getting to campus, you're getting acclimated with everything. I saw that you really put yourself out there. You really got involved with a lot of different organizations. And it seemed like those were things that you were, it seemed like those were geared towards a certain goal. So, I mean, you got into radio, you got into TV, you mentioned Black Student Council, you joined Kappa Alpha Psi. what was your end goal when it came to, getting into these different organizations, if there was one, or did something kind of develop over time as you were starting to get involved with those different student organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I think like some of the school newspaper, Marquette TV. Um, I mean, I can say that I had like my own radio, station thing going on for every Thursday at night from like 9 until 10 on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. Like just like dibble and dabble. Like you have to do trial and error to see what you like and what you don't like. And you don't know that unless you put yourself in that position. So for me, it was something that I was excited about doing because I wanted to see if that was something that I really wanted to commit for doing like for the rest of my life,
Mm-hmm.
or if I wanted to steer into like a different way and, for example, decide to go like a different route kind of thing. So to me, I think that's what some of those organizations were about. But then also, like I said, for me, like I can remember growing up, like I went to Boys and Girls Clubs. I was involved in like a lot of like youth sports. And so I always had mentors and people that were giving back and head coaches that weren't getting paid. They were doing it for the love and for the kids.
Yeah.
So when I knew it was my chance and my opportunity to do the same thing, I want to make sure that I did that. So a lot of the organizations and the principles that, they align with me and what I wanted to do with my life. With Kappa Alpha Psi, the motto is like achievement in every field of human endeavor. And that's something that like I took to heart because I want to be successful in all that I do, whether it's sports, whether it's having a family, whether it's, helping out the community. Like I just want to be able to achieve, in as many ways possible. So, for me, that was big. That's something that I've consistently like been held on because you have to be appreciative of, and pave the road for others to come. So, I remember the influence again, like I had growing up, and I want people to have that same feeling, especially like, the Black kids and the Black youth. Like, I didn't come from the roughest of households. Like I know people who had it way worse off than I did. I had a single parent household, but like my brother's 8 years older than I am. So essentially he was like my father figure growing up. So I felt like I had that stability, but I know a lot of kids that didn't have that stability, for example. And sports was what they gravitated to. And if you didn't have those volunteers helping out with these programs, then, it wouldn't have existed, and who knows what happens to these kids. So, thinking like from a wider scope of things, like you have to be able to, put all those things into account and, prioritize and kind of go from there. You have to, obviously you want to be a little bit selfish when you're in college because you want to focus on like you and making sure that like you're successful. But at the same point in time, when you have a little bit of downtime or something like that, instead of, playing, 4 hours of Call of Duty, for example, you can commit to like an hour and a half of like community service, for example, and cleanup.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I remember cleaning up, and I mean, you build connections doing that as well. I didn't know the impact of like networking, for example, at the time.
Yeah.
But I meant you're doing that networking when you're doing these things, when you're out, and you didn't have no idea who you could potentially meet when you're doing these community service events, whether it's helping pick up, stuff that's on the highways, or whether it's helping people like voting and ballots and things of that nature. You have no idea the amount of people that you could run into, and connections that you can build that may help you out in the future, or, in that regard. So, those things are all important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That paying it forward mentality and networking. We're always big on that. We're always talking about basically keeping your bridges intact. Because the person that you're picking up that trash with on the highway, you never know how valuable that relationship is going to be later on. They might be in the same field as you. They might end up being your frat brother one day. So it's crazy to think about that maybe in the midst of that, but it is something that happens and exists. And so, even if it's in the back of your mind, you're kind of going through your school with that mindset. So that's dope that you had that. So, and you mentioned sports and making sure that, that is something that, keeps kids on the good track, and it's definitely a good segue to kind of get into your career, because you got into sports. You're about like 5 years into just working with sports specifically. How did you get into sports as a career?
Yeah, so like I said, growing up, I did all the sports: baseball, basketball, football, track. Of course, I think every kid believes when they're in elementary school that they want to play football for their career, or they want to play basketball and be the next LeBron or whatnot. But I'm 6 feet. I'm not 6'8". And I knew I was never going to be 6'8". So I knew like playing professionally wasn't going to be something I wanted to do. I remember vividly in high school, actually, not wanting to go to practice because it seemed like it wasn't fun anymore. Yeah. And it was more, professional, and it was more of a job. And so that kind of like lost a little bit of the spirit for me. But when I got to school, I wasn't playing like any sports, on any like collegiate teams in that regard. But I wanted to be involved in sports, and I didn't know how to be involved in sports. So actually, at Marquette, I got connected with the athletic department. I started working in their ticket office. And so my job was to work, the game days of all the sports. And super simple things like just helping out with ticketing, for example, for like the volleyball teams and the women's basketball teams. But then I got to my first men's basketball game. It was amazing. It was just a ton of fun. It was a program, obviously, that I had seen a lot when that influenced, of course, me going to school. So I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I get to go to these games, and I get paid to go to these games. Of course.
Right? It's a no-brainer.
So that was my first exposure to being able to work in sports, but in different capacities, because you don't hear about the different type of jobs that are around and available, working in sports outside of like either being an owner or being like a player. So for me, that was my first eye-opening experience of, wow, I can kind of make a career out of this. So prior to graduation from Marquette, I'd applied to a position with the Golden State Warriors. So this was back in 2011, so about 9 years ago. And I had gotten, at the time, the Warriors weren't good. Steph was not, he might have just begun being with the team, but he wasn't who he is now.
Right.
But I do remember them asking me if I wanted to start at a lower position since I didn't have the experience. But silly me, I said, no, I'm graduating from Marquette this year. I feel like I deserve a higher position. And I got shut down, and I got denied, and I said, wow. And then I said, what do I need to do? And they told me, like, you need to get more experience. And so from there on in, I just wanted to try to find any role that would help guide me and get me into where I was looking to apply for, which was a group sales account executive position. So from there, I took positions and jobs, whether it was my first job was working at Verizon in sales. I don't personally care for sales. I'll just say this up front. Okay. I don't like the process or whatnot of it. I don't feel like I want to be a salesman or a car salesman or whatnot. But for me, the biggest thing was getting in. Once you get in, then you can kind of create your path and go from there.
Yeah.
So that's always like the most important thing. You can build your connections and, potentially move from, one, position to another. So, but the whole thing is getting in, and the easiest thing to get into was sales. So that's why I figured out a way to get there. I just made it happen. So that's where I was working at Verizon. I was getting, my experience in sales up, things of that nature. It allowed me to move back home to California with a job, which is, you can't go from Wisconsin, where rent is $400 a month, to California, where rent is $1,500 a month without having some kind of job set up before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was very important to me. But then I enrolled into a sport management master's program because that would open up my eyes and opportunities to all the different, professions that are within sports that I wasn't thinking of or I wasn't aware of, like, again, when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened up my opportunities. My first position was working with the Oakland Raiders on their game day staff. And it was funny because a lot of the people that work for it, sports is super small. It's really small, especially if you're in different, if you're in a place where there's a lot of teams, it's extremely small. Mm-hmm. So at the time, there was the Oakland Raiders, the Niners, the A's, the Giants. We have 5-6 teams that are all within the same area, which is, pretty impressive because there's states that only have one of each, and we had 6 that were all in the Bay Area. So that was my way of getting exposure or whatnot to being in the sports field. And I was like, I like this. This is fun. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm getting paid to go to games. So essentially it's like I have season tickets for free. And I'm also getting paid to work. So it's something that I enjoy doing. And finding something that you enjoy doing is very important. That makes the job easier. It makes getting up on Mondays easier. And I meant, that fulfillment is important. So that's, I felt like I was a part of the team. I was part of the success or whatnot. So, and, it was worth my investment going to grad school because the following year is when I got accepted to a position full-time with the Warriors. And that was in 2016. So that was about 3 weeks before we finished the regular season with the best record at 73-9. Mm-hmm. We're not going to say what happened.
No.
There was maybe a 3-1 lead that, didn't necessarily go our way at the end.
Allegedly, right?
It's kind of unfortunate. But we'll skip past that one and we'll just talk about the successes. But I was also on a team that won back-to-back championships, and it was ended up being part of a dynasty.
Yeah,
I've got rings from the team.
Nice.
So I have a ring, and it's not maybe as good as like Steph and Clay's, so to speak. But I have a ring that has my name on it, and it looks really, really nice. It's really so.
It's a small flex for you. I see you.
Yeah. It's a small flex. It's a small flex. I can say, there's so many people that would want, there's franchises who've never won a ring whatsoever.
Yeah.
So the fact that I've been a part of a team that won 2, and have been to the finals every year until this season that I have been there, this is nothing but blessings and thankfulness. So that's kind of how my career path went about.
Absolutely. So, and I think a good thing that you pointed out is that you saw that you had to find a route to kind of get in, and you took the sales route. And even though that's not something that you either cared about, or I don't know how comfortable you actually felt going into sales, but you saw that creative way to kind of get in, and has led you up into the point that you're at now. So that's actually, really good to get into kind of what you actually do, because, when you, just like you said, you only knew that you could be either an owner or an athlete at one point in your life. You didn't hear about, the whole business side when it comes to working with a specific franchise, or, even me personally, I'm not big in sports. So all I knew was, okay, you can, the first 2 things, you can be a commentator, if you're lucky, you can, work in front or behind the camera when it comes to just the broadcasting side. And that was just kind of it for me. So, talk a little bit about, what you do, with the Warriors, and, the different aspects that you've gotten into, within your position. Because I've even seen there's a picture, I believe you were in a huddle with kids and they're about to perform at halftime. So talk a little bit about, the kind of things that you do as a sales executive.
Yeah. So as a group sales account executive, I'm a little bit more unique compared to a regular salesperson, because they may be a little bit more transactional. I handle sales, service, and event planning essentially. So I handle all of my accounts from beginning to end. I meet with them throughout the year. So I found solace in the position because it gave me the opportunity to do event planning and to execute events, which was something that I did enjoy, that I do enjoy, I should say. And on top of that, I also got to do a lot of relationship building, which has always been big for me.
Mm-hmm.
So these were like genuine connections with people. So it wasn't as if I was just, hey, buy these tickets and I'll never talk to you again. Like I'm meeting you before, I'm meeting you after. I might meet you in the summertime for lunch. So it's all about like building that rapport with people. So I appreciate that aspect of my position, because if I didn't have that portion of it, I probably would have been gone. Because like I said, I'm not all about just the salesy and the transactions, but you have to find, like I said, like things that you want to take out of it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I enjoy and I appreciate is that I put on our African American Heritage Night.
Mm-hmm.
That's an event that wasn't big when I got there, and now it's the largest African American heritage event based on all the professional teams that are in the Bay Area. So that was something that I got to, implement and put on, and I worked from getting like the halftime performers to the national anthem singers to, getting the kids on the court to high five like the players. And those experiences, I can only imagine if I was a kid, I would have like freaked out, and I would have been super excited to just enjoy being on the same court as some of my favorite players, especially if you're a kid growing up who loves sports, you love your teams, whether they're good or bad. Like if you love your team, you love your team. And seeing like the smiles on their face and how happy they are and how they don't want to wash their hands for ever because they high five Steph. Like that was great. That's something that I enjoy. I wish when I was younger I could have played on the Warriors court before a game. Like that would have been a lot of fun for me. So that's another part. Again, it comes back to what do you want to like get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something to me that, I knew that I could appreciate immediately. And I would always remember that, yes, I'm in sales, but to me, I care about the experiences of everybody. So whether it's, the adults networking at African American Heritage Night, where we have, African American art around, we created like an African American art gallery. This past year, we did a networking thing. Those are experiences people are going to remember, and they're going, at that point in time, the game becomes secondary.
Yeah.
Because you're there for the other experiences. And then you're like, oh yeah. And there's a game going on I could watch too. So not terrible. It's not bad. But, even if you're not, like you said, like yourself, not necessarily the biggest of sports fans, if you find, those other reasons why people should attend, you have, for African American Heritage Night, for example, you have all the HBCUs come out. In California, it's not as big as like the Midwest or the South or anything like that. Right. But, you still definitely have people that are part of fraternities, sororities for the Divine Nine, as well as HBCUs. So, and these people still are wearing their colors with pride. You just see, you can tell that energy in the building is different that night from everyone, and knowing that you put that on and you executed it, that makes me sleep definitely better, and knowing that I'm doing something that I enjoyed in that regard. So
yeah, definitely. Who would have thought that, someone who was, really big on relationships and, paying it forward and, thinking, man, if I was a kid and I got to do this, this would have been awesome. And I'm the reason for this kid smiling over there because he just high-fived Steph Curry. Who would have thought that would be in a, quote unquote sales position. So, or that it could just even be involved with sports. So I think that's really good to see those other aspects of, working behind the franchise besides, what you would just see on TV or whatever the case is. And so, with sports being so small, Do you, what's your perspective on just the kind of the awareness of the different careers like within sports, maybe to somebody who's in high school or somebody who's in college, what do you think? Do you think it's, there's maybe work to do when it comes to making those different positions aware? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's I would say 100%. Like, there's going to always be a ability for it to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there's definitely more awareness now than there was, back in the day. There's a lot more. Social media is great in that regard because you can see a lot of people with different positions. But like, I think it's still on the people that are in the industry to still put it out there and let people know that these are outlets, these are things to do. Even if you don't, like I said, you don't like sports, say you're a great photographer, there's team photographers,
Mm-hmm.
and if you love sports, you can blend those two together, for example, and bam, there you go. You have the best of both worlds kind of thing. So, or, even accounting and numbers, like, there, Steph has to get paid somehow, some way. You have to do the financial, things in that regard. So if you love numbers and you want to do, let's just decide you want to do something with numbers in sports, and you can do accounting, for example, and you can be a part of that. So I think it's for the people that are in the industry. It's all about doing these type of platforms and podcasts and getting the word out that there's so many different things that you can do that are within sports that aren't necessarily tied to playing on the court, for example.
Right.
That's like the biggest thing I would say is, being able to put that information out in the public so that they're aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a nationwide thing for sure. So like whether you're in Chicago or Atlanta or whatever it is, if you're affiliated or associated or a part of a team, you should be able to communicate that out to others and put it out there so that they know that this is something that's an opportunity for them. Like I said, we all have these platforms now. We're not all, of course, built the same way of like a superstar athlete and having millions of followers, but either whether you have 100, 200, 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is, all you need is one person to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're like, oh man, I never knew that was a possibility before, that's all it takes. But you never know that if you don't put it out there. So
Yeah.
there's always an opportunity for us to be better at it. I believe that we've made a lot of progress, but we need to, of course, continue paving and continue to paint it forward so that people are aware and that kids can get it into their heads earlier that, working in sports or whatever career field that they're interested in is an opportunity. But you need to see faces that look like yours in order to know that that dream is a reality.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at yourself, like hosting like podcasts and things like that. There's you see, for example, the Charlemagnes and the Joe Buttons and you could do podcasts with Ta-Nehisi Coates and things of that nature. Like, there's so many different ways about it, but once you see somebody that looks like you that's doing it, then like this is an actual reality now.
Yeah.
So I think like the youth, that's something that is very like important for them to see. So using, like I said, again, like this platform is amazing and it's great. And hopefully the kids and the parents that do watch this and listen to it will be able to understand and appreciate the importance of it.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that. So, we're trying to get the word out there. We're trying to build, like you said, there's always more room for growth, and that's what we're here for. So, the last question I have for you is really just kind of about you. So, with all the things that you do, whether that's within your job, outside of your job, that's basically for other people. You're putting yourself in a position where you can, like you said, grow these relationships and you can create these experiences for people young and old, just from the work that you do. How do you take care of yourself? What's your way of keeping your well-being intact so that you're able to go out and do all these things?
Yeah. So for me, what I really appreciate, for example, about my family is like we're not huge. We're not like a big family. They're not, for example, relying on me to do different things, which is great because that's one less pressure that I have to deal with. So that allowed me to be selfish in the sense of you do what you want to do, and you need to figure out the way to do it. So whether it was not spending as much time hanging out with other people so that I could volunteer and be part of like the Super Bowl, for example, was like great. But you have to find that time and you have to find that balance. It's so much easier said than done, especially like if you really love something and you really want to be successful at it, you may just crave it so much and you just think about it all the time. But you have to find that way to like hang out, relax, get a cutoff on and say, okay, I'm done. Let me go do something else and get your mind off of it.
Yeah.
During staying in place, I've picked up, for example, just doing a little bit more from a mental standpoint. That's really helped me out is meditating, and that was something I would have never done before. I did Taekwondo, so I got a black belt in that, so I know a little bit about things, but meditation was a little bit different for me because you're literally just all of those thoughts that are in your mind that you're anxious about, that you're nervous about, like you're like, when you meditate, you're trying to forget about it all, and even if it's just for 10 minutes, you're just trying to really zone out and enjoy yourself and just be calm, and lower the body from just all the high pressure, high anxiety, all of those high stress environments. It just allows you. So I like to do that either before I work, or typically I'll try to do it before I work and before I go to bed. It definitely helps before going to bed because sometimes I don't get through those 10-minute sessions before I fall asleep, which is great.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's other things you can do. I still play Call of Duty. Like that's something I do. I love sports, so I watch basketball games and football's back now. So I do that. But you have to find what you love and make sure that you're doing it. Not necessarily as an escape, but a lot of people, they get so ingrained in work that there's just always this stress and pressure. And like you said, if you're not right mentally, you're going to suffer from it, whether it's having a breakdown or whether it's, yelling at people that you don't need to be yelling at. You become more unstable in that regard. So you have to find that me time for yourself. And that's okay to do. That's very important because if you don't do it, then everything else is going to go down the drain. You have to enjoy life. You have to find that delicate balance between, working hard, but knowing, okay, I'm not working anymore. So for me in my job, for example, I remember my first day on the job, I was shadowing one of my coworkers, and she was telling me about like her day-to-day kind of thing, but she had said how she needed to respond to somebody who had sent her a text message at 11 p.m. I was like, at night? And she was like, yes. I was like, no way. I was like, there's no shot. I was like, is this your personal cell phone or is this like your company cell phone? She's like, no, this is my personal. I'm like, oh no, we're not having this. So I was like, let me buy the cheapest phone possible. This is going to be my work phone. And I'm on the clock from 8:30 until 5:30, unless it's a game day. At 5:31, this thing is shut off. I'm not going to, because it's those small things. But she said she wished there was something she would have thought of when she first started, because now her clients, for example, had like her personal number, and it didn't matter if it was the weekend, if it was 11 p.m., 2 a.m. Like people get really disrespectful and crazy about things. But that's when you set those boundaries and you say, hey, I work from 8:30 until 5:30. These are my hours. And you're strict to that, then they understand and they respect it and they appreciate it. because then they know what to expect from you as well.
Mm.
Now, if you start, it's a slippery slope, because if you start responding at 8:39, 10 p.m., then they think that they can respond at all these times. So they create this habit that's built from you responding. So if you set it in place quickly and you find that balance and you're like, hey, you communicate it out, you're good. But if you don't set those boundaries, then, that's where you start thinking about it all the time. And, it gets into like your personal life kind of thing.
Yeah.
And all that is extremely important when it comes to just being able to stay sane, because there's so many thoughts going on. What am I going to do with this and that and this and that? But, sometimes you just got to reflect and say, I'm going to do something for me. And it doesn't have to be buying a pair of new shoes. You can, nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I got a bunch of
Yep, don't disqualify it.
Exactly. But whether it's just hanging out and just doing something that you want for yourself for the rest of the night, whether it's watching TV or Netflix or, doing a podcast, something that you want to do on the side, like, you can do it. You just need to be able to find that balance between the two. And it's a lot easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fortunate in the sense that it's something that I was able to set and establish at a younger age. But for some people, it's a lot harder to do. And, but you have to try to, like, even just remind yourself that, hey, like, let me do something for me. Hey, let me not do any more work. Like, you have to set those boundaries. Once you set those, I think that's how you make sure that you're good going forward and consistently being okay.
There you go. Well, hey, I think you covered everything. I think balance, I think, is the biggest word that I got from that I try to apply. And like you said, it is easier said than done. And, some people are worried about saying no and coming across as mean, but you have to take care of yourself at some point, like you said, if you don't, everything just kind of falls to the floor, and then you got to try to work back up. So definitely well put. That's all I got for you, man. I appreciate your time. This was super insightful, just from not only a professional standpoint, but personally as well, just to kind of get to know you and your mindset and kind of how you go about life. It seems like you're doing really well. I can tell that, we mentioned this earlier, that you finally have skies now, or clouds and everything, with all the fires going around your neck of the woods. So
crazy.
I'm gonna let you enjoy the rest of your day. Before we close out, if there's anything that you want to plug, you want to tell the people how they can reach you, where you're at, I'm gonna give you the floor to do that.
I mean, from a plug standpoint, if you feel like reaching out to me, I'm not too much on like Facebook or anything like that anymore, but my name, Anthony, Anthony, Nutting, Nutting. Add me on LinkedIn if you have it. If you don't have it, you need to create one. It's great. Get it started. It's a professional platform, so keep it professional.
Please.
But in general, I thank you for the time and just being able to talk today. So hopefully, like I said, at least one person will see this, and hopefully it'll help them out in their journey, whether it's in sports or whatever it is that they want to do with their endeavors. But I appreciate the time, and thank you for the platform. I think this is wonderful. It's great. And I appreciate you putting out this good work for people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just like you said, it only takes one person, to catch it. So, all right, so we're going to close this out. Everybody, thank you for listening, watching, however you're consuming this podcast. We definitely appreciate your time. We are going to, hopefully get out more content, more people to get on. If there's any career or any, position that you're even just, remotely thinking about, we want to know about it. So definitely reach out to us. You can do so on social media. We're at inquirehire@gmail.com. You can check out our website. There's just many ways to get in touch with us. Don't feel hesitant to do so. We're definitely here to listen and to, try to get that information out to you. So until next time, take care. Enjoy your day. Peace.